Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from New York City, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show, and welcome to Sleep In Saturday Q&A Day. It's the day we take on questions, and we try our best to give some answers from our audience. And we're here live on Zoom and live on Facebook today. And Facebook people, if you're just stumbling upon this podcast, you can find this podcast wherever you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. What's that other funny one I always like to say? Stitcher. We're on Stitcher too. And YouTube. I like YouTube because you can just see our faces. I like seeing somebody's face when they talk.
Okay.
That's why I struggle with the mask thing. I always say, take 10 steps back, pull the mask down. I want to recognize what I'm saying. I want to take a mental photograph. Now talk. Okay. So anyway, this is a podcast on yoga, culture, lifestyle, philosophy, and how to apply it to life. And we also do this live on Zoom. If you want to join our Zoom crew, oh, they're here. They're loyal. They're every day. It's quite impressive. We've known these guys for years now. Join our family. You got to write Mara, our producer, at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. And then you'll get the secret codes to enter into our Zoom chambers. Today's questions and answers day. So we're going to start off with some Q, unless we got some announcements. Mara, any announcements?
We do. We have a Bhakti recovery group meeting today at 9:30.
So if you don't know what that is, that's like a 12-step group that we do for people who are into Bhakti yoga. That means instead of just saying higher power, we give that higher power, from the sacred literature of India, form and identity, right? So we say sweet baby Krishna, or a personal form of a higher power. So it's a Bhakti, it's a recovery group, and we meet anonymously, but it's done through a personal conception of divinity. That's a slight difference with the regular 12-step program. With the higher power can just be anything. But we think that the program's good and goes hand in hand with our spiritual evolution. So we made our own Bhakti recovery group. I think it's a great group. I think it's the greatest one, if not the greatest part of what we've got going here. Right, Mayor?
Yeah, definitely. They have 10. We're up to 10 meetings a week that these guys do too.
10 meetings a week.
Yeah, it's a lot. Also, Katie Bell is offering a Bhakti Immersion workshop today, and she's offering it free to our Patreon members via Zoom. And because she's on the West Coast, it doesn't start till 12:15 Eastern Standard Time, so you can still sign up for that.
Okay, that's our inner clubhouse going on. That's our patreon.com/wisdom of the sages, because it's community supported. So we have these other programs that go on, like Bhakti Recovery. And the beautiful thing is it doesn't cost much to join the Patreon. It's just some type of contribution. Although Kaustubha hit me in the head the other day, he said, if you give $1, they take most of the money. I didn't realize that. They recommend give $3. So if you're going to give something, if you can't afford anything, you can give $3. Truthfully, you do whatever you want. Some people give $1,000 a month. Just kidding. No one does that. But I'm just trying to throw a number out there. So you big, high rollers might, I can match that. Anyway, thank you for those who are supporting us. We appreciate it. That's how we keep this train chugging along the tracks.
Also,
Okay. Yeah.
Whoops. Also, Seth Lieberman's offering his Harmonium Meetup group tomorrow at noon for Patreon members.
Oh, very nice.
And there's no show tomorrow.
There's no show tomorrow.
Right. You know, but two other things quick. One is that I'm speaking today at the Bhakti Center at 11 o'clock, which is not long after this show. But I'll be speaking on the topic, are we really free? And that's part of the Soul Talks at the Bhakti Center. So if you go to the Bhakti Center's website, Soul Talks, or you just go to the Bhakti Center at 11 o'clock, it's free of charge from 11 till 1:30.
I love that I love that concept. And I think in spiritual culture, we reframe the conception of freedom.
Okay.
How free are you if you're a slave within your body? You gonna get into some of that stuff?
I just might. And there's another thing. You know, I got a message this morning from Rukmini. You know, Rukmini Walker. You know,
how is she?
How is she? I'm sure she's fine. But she was just asking me to share with everyone that, you know, she does these Urban Davy programs once a month online, and so tomorrow at 11:30, from 11:30 to 1 Eastern time, she has a special interview with Gopi. You know Gopi out there in the yoga teacher in Kansas.
Oh, that Gopi.
Yeah, that Gopi.
Gopi's wonderful. You know how I know her? We stayed with her when we were brahmacharis. We all stayed at her house.
Right.
I have a whole crazy story about Gopi. I'm not going to get into it right now.
Okay, don't get into it because it just announces.
It's a good story.
I just wrote to Rukmini right now because she didn't tell me where to go. But if you Google Urban Davy, and you know, you should be able to find it. But that's, you know, this will be a really interesting interview. These are for ladies. It's Urban Davies is technically at the intersection of devotional wisdom and the lives of women in the 21st century. I'd imagine men can tune in, but it's especially geared towards women. So check out Urban Davy, and that's happening tomorrow. So, you know, we don't have a show, but that's something you could check out, Urban Davy.
All right. Well, my friend, Mr. Kaustubha, me and Kaustubha hung out yesterday. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
They had me over for lunch again, which is nice. And then we went for a walk.
We did.
Went for a nice walk through Central Park. I tried to chant, but Kaustubha talked my ear off like usual. Blah, blah, blah. Let me focus. No. Gabby. That's Kaustubha.
That's it.
Okay, you're up first, my friend. Here's a question for you. I would like to thank you for all the work you do in delivering wisdom of the sages. This is, by the way, this is from Andy the Other. If you're not familiar with others, they're people we don't know are out there, but they're out there, and we call them others.
He's from Scotland.
Otherwise, they're Zoomers, where we see your face, we put a face and a name together. I'd like to thank you for all the work you do in delivering wisdom of the sages. I've been listening regularly since hearing Raghu on the Joe Rogan podcast back in 2020. Being new to Bhakti, I find your show an enjoyable and accessible way for me to have a regular association with people practicing Bhakti. I'm so grateful for this. My question: I have seen references in various texts regarding Krishna's internal and external energies, as well as his marginal potency. I have no understanding what this even means. It's confusing.
What's going on?
Right? I have no understanding what that even means. Are you able to explain in simple terms or give examples of what these energies and potencies are and what the differences are between them? Many thanks in advance, Andy and Other from Scotland. Isn't it cool? People are listening in Scotland.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Very
So
cool.
Andy, let's keep it simple. You know, there's a verse, a Vedic verse. What is it? Parasya Shaktir Vividaya Vishruyate. That it's basically saying that the absolute truth manifests through many different energies, and those energies can be broken down. You know, you can break them down, and then you can break them down more, and you can break them down more. You know, but in a really simple way to understand it is we can say there's three basic energies. There's the internal energy, there's the external energy, and then there's the marginal energy, which means in between the two, right? And so these are all the energies of God. Internal means spiritual energy. And that spiritual energy is conscious, and the forms that it takes are eternal. And then external energy means the material energy. That's the energy that's always shifting and always changing. It's form, and it's not conscious, right? It's insentient. It doesn't feel. And then there's the marginal energy, and that's us. That's the souls, right? We're not God, but we're made of the energy of God. We're made of the internal energy of God, really. Prabhupada, at one point, he calls it, we're an offshoot of the internal energy, meaning that we're conscious and we are eternal just like the internal energy. But we have the tendency to be covered and confused or bewildered by the external energy, right? And that's why we're called marginal, because although we're spiritual, we have the tendency to become confused or bewildered by the external energy.
Merriam-Webster says marginal means of secondary or minor importance,
Okay.
not central.
But even like we say in the margins, right? Doesn't mean like kind of like in between, right?
Off
Like
to,
it's
off to the sides.
off to the side, but not quite
Yeah.
outside, but not quite inside. You know, it's like
Right.
So there are different terms for this. The term sometimes for the internal energy, the Sanskrit term is Antarangasakti, and so antar means like within, the internal, and then the external energy is called the Bahirangasakti. Bahir means like away,
Out,
or
away.
yeah, outward. And then Tatashta means the marginal Shakti, and that's what we are. The souls were that Tatashta Shakti. Sometimes other terms used like Chit Shakti means the internal, Jiva Shakti means the marginal, and Maya Shakti means the external energy.
These are different names for the same thing.
Different names for the same thing. Sometimes the internal energy is called the Svarupa Shakti. Sometimes it's called the Para Shakti. It's just different ways.
Now that we're
terms.
thoroughly confused.
Yeah. Well, but it's simple again. There's this, and let me read a little something from Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
This is a purport commentary to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 5, Text 14. He writes, the ingredients, namely earth, water, fire, air, and sky, or ether, as well as the conception of material identity, which means the false ego, the intelligence, the buddhi, and the mind, the manas, are all produced of the external energy of the Lord, right? That's all coming. This is all Bhagavad Gita. If you go to Bhagavad Gita, text 4, 5, and 6, it's going to give you first the external, then the marginal, then the internal. Maybe we'll read that, but I'll continue reading this. He says, the living entity who enjoys the interaction of the above gross and subtle ingredients as set up by eternal time is an offshoot of the internal potency. So that's us. We're in the material world trying to enjoy with our mind and our senses, the external ingredients, the different blends of earth, water, fire, air, ether, in the forms of other people's bodies, in the forms of food, in the form of entertainment in different ways and so on, different tastes and different flavors and all of that. So we're an offshoot of the internal potency, but we're the marginal potency. So again, he says, the living entity who enjoys the interaction of the above gross and subtle ingredients as set up by eternal time is an offshoot of the internal potency with freedom to remain either in the material world or the spiritual world. We have the choice of what type of energy we're going to associate with. In the material world, the living entity is enticed by deluding nescience. But in the spiritual world, he is
enticed by deluding nescience.
We're deluding nescience from Scranton.
That was good.
In the material world, the living entity is enticed by deluding nescience. But in the spiritual world, he is in the normal condition of spiritual existence without any delusion. The living entity is known as the marginal potency. That's okay, the marginal potency, in the middle one again. But in all circumstances, neither the material ingredients nor the spiritual parts and parcels are independent of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. For all things, whether products of external, internal, or marginal potencies of the Lord, are simply displays of the same effulgence of the Lord, just as light and heat and smoke are displays of fire. So in one sense, it's all God's energy. Just as like smoke is the energy of fire. You don't have smoke without fire. They all come together. He says none of them are separate from the fire. All of them combine together to be called fire. Similarly, all phenomenal manifestations, external energy, material things, as well as the effulgence of the body of Vasudeva, are his impersonal features, whereas he eternally exists in his transcendental form, Satchit Ananda Vigraha, means eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss form, distinct from all conceptions of material ingredients mentioned above. So there are those three energies. We are the marginal energy. We become confused by the external material energy, but we are meant to associate and reconnect with the spiritual energy, the internal energy. There's a beautiful, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, all this stuff is analyzed in detail. Again, it's right there in the Bhagavad Gita if you just go to text chapter 7, text 4, 5, and 6. But there's a famous verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jiver Svarupa Hoy, Krishnera Nityadas, right? And this is Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 20, text 108 and 109. It says, it is a living entity's constitutional position to be an eternal servant of Krishna. Why? Because he is the marginal energy of Krishna and a manifestation simultaneously one and different from the Lord. Like a molecular particle of sunshine or fire, Krishna has three varieties of energy. And then if you jump ahead another verse, then it gets to text Madhya Lila 20, text 111. And you have this verse, Krishnera Svabhavika Tina Shakti Paritnati Chit Shakti Jiva Shakti Aramaya Shakti. Lord Krishna naturally has three energetic transformations, and these are known as the spiritual potency, that's the internal energy, the living entity potency, that's the marginal energy, and the illusory potency, the external energy. And in the commentary to text 108 and 109, Srila Prabhupada just shares this real simple, it's like in one paragraph, just to understand all of Krishna's energies and how they relate. Just really understanding because Sanatana, these are teachings in this chapter from Sri Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami, the great, incredible, philosopher and saint, writer. And he asked Sri Chaitanya, he was an incredibly brilliant man, incredibly successful man, but he approached, in showing how a disciple approaches a guru, he approaches Sri Chaitanya and asks, who am I? Right? I don't know anything. Who am I? And so this is what Srila Prabhupada writes in this commentary. He says, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains these verses as follows. Sri Sanatana Goswami asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who am I? In answer, the Lord replied, you are a pure living entity. You are neither the gross material body nor the subtle body composed of mind and intelligence. So that's the external energy. Actually, you are a spirit soul, eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, Krishna. Therefore, you are his eternal servant. You belong to Krishna's marginal potency. There are two worlds, the spiritual world, internal energy, and the material world, external energy. And you are situated between the material and spiritual potencies. That's the marginal potency. You have a relationship with both the material and spiritual world. Therefore, you are called the marginal potency. You are related with Krishna as one and simultaneously different. So in other words, we are one with God, but we're also different from God. Right? We're made of God's energy, but we're not God. So he says, because you are spirit soul, you are one in quality with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because you are a very minute particle of spirit soul, you are different from the Supreme Soul. Therefore, your position is simultaneously one with and different from the Supreme Soul. The examples given are those of the sun itself and the small particles of sunshine, and of a blazing fire and the small particles of fire, the sparks. All right. And so that idea that we are the energy of God, we are one with God, but different from God, is called Mera. Hot seat.
I wasn't even listening.
Beta.
The boom. Yeah, Mera's on it. Chicha Veda, Veda Tattva.
Oh, pretty good.
Simultaneously one and different. So I hope, Andy, I
could have sworn she was all over the message board at that point when you asked her that question.
That's called Atmavan Manyate Jagat, Raghunath.
Oh, do you think? I got news for you. She was writing me a message. I was reading it, but she was on the message board. There, you're called out, Mara. Boom.
Okay. All right. I hope that was helpful, Andy. And it's not as complicated as it sounds. It's actually kind of simple.
You can easily get lost in these Sanskrit words, or even the translation of the Sanskrit words, like marginal potency. Marginal potency, like we've never used that phrase ever in my life. A marginal potency. I barely ever use the word marginal except for the band Marginal Man. That's about it. I've never said marginal. Okay.
I got a question
what you
for
got
you.
for me? You got a question for me?
This is coming from our friend, Stephanie Berman.
Oh, I love Stephanie Berman.
And is she here with us this morning? I thought I heard you.
I think she is. I think she is.
Okay,
I
Stephanie,
think she's
your
coming to
question
India
is
with me.
next. Oh,
her and her husband are coming to India with me this.
great.
By the way, let me plug India because it's Saturday.
Okay.
Got 2 India pilgrimages going on. The second one's not officially announced, but it's at the end of October. But the first one's coming up in February. If you want to go to India, spiritual India, we take this incredible pilgrimage every year. Truthfully, one of the more enriching, funnest things I do all year long. And there may be a space left, but go to my website, raghunath.yoga, to find out more info. But if you're going to jump on that, you better jump on quick, because I think it may be sold out, or there may be a space or two left. Also, right after that, we go trekking through Nepal. That's a whole separate trip. You can sign up for both. I think Vicky.
Vivi?
No, Vicky, not Vivi.
Okay,
not
well,
Vivi.
why are you saying then?
Because I just stumbled, man. Vicky from
Well,
Cyprus.
Vicky? What about Vicky? Tell me.
She's going on both, just back to back, because we're already in that subcontinent. If you want to go, Nepal, trekking through the Himalayas, awesome time to do it. We're doing that in March. I think you should come, Kaustubha. Can you see Kaustubha trekking? Can you see Kaustubha trekking, Mara?
I can trek.
Can you trek
every day, brother?
Can you see him trek?
I think so.
You thought you see Raghunath
with your Toms, slip-ons,
trekking
trekking around. Pull some Wim Hof stuff. Just take off your pants and hike in your underwear up to the snow.
I don't even know
what do you think
Wim
about
Hof
that?
means. That I don't know.
Prabhu, what do you got for me?
I got from Stephanie Berman a very interesting question, Raghunath.
Hit me.
Here's my question. I have two beloved dogs, and I was wondering what lives they may have lived before this one. Oh, this is a good question. We want to know who they were in the previous life, Raghunath, and we want definitive answers. Okay.
Ooh.
She goes on, and what they might be here to learn. It raised a question for me. If we are incarnated as a dog or an insect or as a blade of grass, how is our next incarnation determined? As humans, our spiritual evolution and progression is at least partially in our own hands. For other beings, not so much. That said, one of my dogs, Jesse, did eat a book of Celtic blessings recently and clearly enjoyed chewing on the spiritual substance.
Well, she's got that going for her now.
Okay. Yeah.
Ate the Tibetan Book of the Dead or something. What? The Celtic Book of Blessings. That's good. Good for that dog.
A Celtic Book of Blessings.
A Celtic Book of Blessings. Okay, good for that dog.
So she wraps it up, hoping you can shed some light on this for me, as you have shed so much light already. You know, yesterday Raghunath was at my house and we were arranging these questions. I said, so Raghunath, do you want the question on the internal, external, marginal potencies or dog's past life?
I said, and what do you think my answer was, Mara?
Dog's past.
Dog's past life. To do a dog past life regression. You know, Stephanie, thanks for writing. You know, it is said that, and there's always exceptions to rules. And I'm going to share a really interesting exception to the rule in this. It said that animals. Well, here's the rule: that animals are going through this a hierarchy of species, where they, after whatever action they do, they don't get karma for it. They're always in a state of evolving. So if a tiger, attacks a deer and eats its head off, he doesn't get bad karma for that action, right? Because why? That's what tigers do. And they evolve up to certain species, and then they take birth, either in a sattvic human body, a rajasic human body, or a tamasic human body. By the way, if some of you are new to this, listening on Facebook, and they're like, "What?" I'm just sharing what they teach in the Vedas, that the soul is always incarnating, and we're always and the animal species are always evolving. And they say there's 4 million. What is it? 8,432,000 species of life. 400,000 of those are human species. So the animals are always evolving. And then when they get to the human species, they have the opportunity by their choices to either upgrade their consciousness or degrade their consciousness. And we can see that in the course of a day. We've had meals where I feel degraded, meals where I feel uplifted, conversation where I feel upgraded, conversation where I feel degraded. There's activities we can do to degrade our lives, and there's activities we can do to upgrade our lives. So in the human species, they say it's that free will that makes us move up higher in this life, right? Like I can make choices today that affect tomorrow, but it's not just in this human species, it's in our next life as well. And we can also go down to the animal species. That being said, there is an interesting story in this regard to a special dog. Because whenever you get born into a person who's very focused on spiritual life, that dog is getting special benefit, obviously, or that animal is special. Whenever you get if you're a dog right? Did I just say that right? If there's a dog born into or adopted into a family. So there's a story of in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. And if you're new to the show, just a brief overview of Lord Chaitanya. We are in a micro niche of Hinduism, of a very broad group that studies Sanatan Dharma and Vedic culture. And our micro niches were followers of Lord Chaitanya, Kaustubha and myself. And for the most part, most of you guys, if you're into this podcast. And that is that this personality, Chaitanya, who we speak about a lot, and Kaustubha just mentioned, was a quite interesting person who appeared in Bengal, which is a portion of India, about 500 years ago. And he was, by the very broadest sense, a child prodigy. And people were, historically, he was a child prodigy. He was a genius, and he had followers, and he was a teacher in his prepubescent times. And then later in life, he was also known as a great mystic. And there's a lot of mystics around India. So people thought, oh, wow, this person's a mystic yogi. And then later in life, people started to recognize, and especially his more intimate followers, who in their own right were great Goswamis, sages, etc. They said, no, this is not person's. He's beyond a prodigy. He's beyond a mystic. This person's an actual avatar. And so, like we know about any other historical figure, like Columbus or George Washington, we know of them by their own notes they've kept, or their own followers who kept biographies about these people doing interesting things. We know about Chaitanya from all of his followers, Goswamis, who kept diaries about his life. And all these things are really, really lucidly represented in these histories of Chaitanya. So Chaitanya at this time, he had so many diehard followers just because of his stature and his knowledge and his miracles.
Raghu, who is the dog? Who is the dog?
It's coming. The dog's coming.
No,
so Chaitanya,
Stephanie Berman's dog. What's its identity?
Stephanie Berman's dog. Check this out.
I'm beginning to get the feeling you have no idea who her dog was in the previous life. I don't
know who her dog was in the previous life, but we can have a seance. Okay. I do provide seances and Ouija board sittings. But listen to this.
All right.
So Chaitanya they were taking this pilgrimage. All the devotees from Bengal wanted to see Lord Chaitanya in a holy place called Puri. And so there was a very wealthy devotee named Shivananda Sain, and he prepared and he funded it because it takes money. You got to walk back then. You walk through the jungles, and he fed everybody. He arranged things for people to stay. It's a good story. Just hear me out. And so he also had this dog that was following him, and he ordered all his people working for him, listen, you take care of this dog. You feed this dog every day. So every day this dog got special treatment. And
even paying the tolls, like on the boats when they had the ferry.
Well, no. The boatman wouldn't even. Sometimes you got to cross a river, so there's a boatman, and the boatman's like, no, this dog's not getting in my boat. And he goes, you know what? I will pay extra for this dog to cross the river. And so he's like, all right, the boatman was like, all right, I'm gonna pay extra. So he's, he's really loving this dog, and they have a very intimate connection. And then one day they arrived late, and they set up their camp to stay because you're like camping out every night. And he said, where's the dog? He's talking to his people. He goes, they were like, oh, I don't know. He goes, you didn't feed the dog tonight? Where's the dog? He's dependent on us. He needs us. That dog, why didn't you get any food for the dog? How's the dog going to eat? And then he got 10 of his people, and they started like a manhunt for this dog. You got to find this dog. You just can't be out in the jungle like this. And he was incredibly upset at the loss of this dog. And the pilgrimage went on to go to Puri. And on the next day, as they started to, march or sing or chant into Puri, they saw Lord Chaitanya sitting there at a distance. And he had one of these coconuts. And he started, ever have a coconut where you cut it open and you take the coconut meat out? And he's taking the coconut meat out and he's throwing it to the dog. The same dog was right there somehow with Lord Chaitanya. And he started throwing the coconut. And before he threw the coconut meat to the dog, Lord Chaitanya, who is known for normal and paranormal activity. Paranormal activity,
Okay.
Kaustubha.
Yeah. All right.
Not normal. He would say to the dog, he said, "Oh, dog, chant the name of Krishna, Ram, and Hari." And I kid you not, this is a true story from the biographers. The dog would go, "Krishna, Krishna." And then he'd throw the coconut meat and he'd eat it. And all the devotees were like, "What is that?" This was witnessed by so many people. The dog was literally chanting and eating coconut. And then they said that dog left his body and attained a spiritual body. Not an ordinary dog. So my point here is, I don't know what your dog was. That's a job for another being. But my guess is it was something evolving. But the fact is that dog is in your hands now. That dog is in your care, your love. And it's really not where the dog's coming from, but it's where that dog is going. So due to your love and due to that affection to you, I truly understand. From what I understand, that dog can evolve way past that dog species and either be liberated or take a very high birth according to what do you feed? Feed the dog. I feed my animal prasad, food that I offer with love. And then when I've had pets that have died, me and the kids, we put some tulsi beads around the animal's neck, put some tulsi leaf in the mouth, put the Ganges water on, and then we bury the body.
There you go. Well, you didn't tell the puppy dog story. That one.
I thought that was the puppy dog story.
No, that's the Shivananda Saint. You don't know the story about when Lord Chaitanya was like a little boy?
Please share.
Prepubescent, as you mentioned. I don't know why you use that term.
What's wrong with prepubescent? Before puberty.
You use that term if it's like it has something actually to do with like the sexual development of the body or something like that.
Well, I meant
young,
should I say preteen? Prepubescent?
Yeah,
preteen?
preteen,
Chaitanya?
Yeah, preteen.
Young Nimai?
Preteen, yeah. But
Sorry,
so in any case, way preteen, way prepubescent, when he was just a little boy, Lord Chaitanya, he fell in love with this little puppy dog, right? And he wanted to bring it home, and he wanted to bring it into the house. In India, the dogs they run all over the place. And never would a Brahmin keep a dog in the home, right? They're like really concerned with all kind of
you can't shed hair,
cleanliness,
lick the deities. You don't want the dog to lick the
right.
deities.
So,
well, that's probably auspicious for the dog. If you think about it.
In any case, so he was a little boy. He wanted the puppy, and his mother saying, "No, we're a Brahmin family. We don't have dogs in the house. We can't do this." And he was upset, and I wish I knew all the details of the story. But eventually, what happened was it was a similar thing where that dog wandered off. And then when they found the dog, and they saw it also chanting, right?
There's many stories of dogs chanting, people.
There are, and
I think you should get a dog.
Thanks. Why?
I don't know. I think it'd be good for you.
Okay, and then they saw a spaceship come down, Raghunath, and take the dog to Vaikuntha.
Paranormal spaceships, it's all there. We got it all here.
Yeah, it's all there. I don't think is that in the Chaitanya Mangala or the Chaitanya Bhagavat? I forget which one, but it's in one of those books. It's one of those.
The interesting thing is about Chaitanya is there's so many biographies of people who witnessed the stuff, and it's not like it's one thing. I'm driving down the road and I'm asking, a man talking to himself, walking in circles. Hey, do you know how to get to Times Square? That's one thing. But if I ask, if I see a cop or if I see some person who looks like they've got their life together, the people that were followers of Chaitanya, they had their life together. They weren't just like,
especially these biographers,
the deranged. No, these guys were like scholars, like what we would call maybe a tenured professor or something like that, who were like, and of the highest caliber of character as well. These are the people that wrote, they were gurus in their own right. And they were writing these biographies.
So if they said a spaceship came down and picked up the puppy dog, then a spaceship came down and picked up the puppy dog.
Well, right. It's not like just there's this crazy random man that said, there's a guy Chaitanya and, there's a spaceship and a dog. And the dog barked Krishna,
Right. All right. I accept. I believe.
I believe too.
All right.
You know what I mean? I mean, these books are written like in beautiful Bengali prose, almost like Shakespearean English, Bengali prose of that time. And it's they're like works of art in themselves. Just to come up with
contain
such
dense philosophy too. So it's not like just some villager just whipped this stuff out.
whipped together. Okay, there's a guy and he's doing miracles, and dogs are chanting and speaking in tongues. No, dogs are speaking in tongues.
Okay.
I wonder if there's any spiritual cat stories for you cat people
I'm
out
sure
there.
I'm sure there are. Well, there's Lord Chaitanya in the Jharkhand forest who's
Not a cat
chanting.
story. I mean,
That's a cat. What, a tiger's not a cat?
I know, but I meant a house cat.
No.
You don't see many cats around India, do you?
Yeah, they got cats all over the place.
Okay. What else we got?
We got a
look
question
at this.
for me.
This is a question for you from our favorite Danny Kozakowski,
Oh, Danny Kozakowski. All right. Yeah, good question.
artiste extraordinaire from Long Island. Hi, Danny. Hi, I'm hoping you can straighten out something I have been wondering about. Recently, I was listening to lectures on the Sri Ishopanishads. That's one of the Upanishads,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
The speaker discussed the laws of karma and described them as a labyrinth we're trapped in, and then said, Krishna's got a sense of humor. In further description, he described the laws of karma with this example. You give a beggar charity, and that beggar becomes a debtor and has to repay you. If he doesn't in this lifetime, he has to take birth again to repay you. He won't become liberated. And guess what? You'll have to take birth again to accept that repayment. Isn't that a cute joke? Well, the joke's on us. My question is, right? Okay, that was interesting. So she said she heard some lecture and she heard that. My question is, doesn't this take the laws of karma out of our own hands? I thought liberation was up to us personally and Krishna, not others. In this way, we need to preach. Is this why we need to preach, right? Or to speak about Krishna? So others can become Krishna conscious, God conscious, and then we can all ideally help each other to get back to the spiritual realm. Just last week, I heard another talk wherein the speaker said, when we make a first step to always remembering Krishna and never forgetting Krishna, Krishna helps us. Maybe we have a few more hundreds of lives, but we will not have millions and millions and millions of lives if we are really seriously practicing. Definitely, this will be the last life. Otherwise, also, we will definitely have a few more lives before we go back to the spiritual realm. In everything His Grace said, He said nothing about additional lives being dependent upon others' repayment. Okay, interesting. I am confident with you both. You'll both be able to clear this up for me. Thank you for all you do. I'm so fortunate to have you as friends and teachers. May Krishna continue to smile upon you and our Sangha. Our Sangha is like our community.
Okay.
All right.
All right,
Good
Danny.
question, Danny
Yeah,
Kozakowski.
So let me just,
Can you
summarize the
reiterate that question? Make it really
Yeah.
simplify it.
So she's saying, I heard 2 lectures recently coming from Bhakti-yogis, right?
Yeah.
One of them made an interesting point. What they said was that the way that the laws of karma work, and ultimately Krishna's in control of them, so he's got a sense of humor about this, but like if you give money to a beggar, well, now that beggar has to pay you back by the law of karma. And that means even if you have to take another birth again for them to do that, then you have to take another birth. So just see how you're trapped like that.
Yep.
And then she heard another talk that was saying that had a seemingly different message, that if we take a step towards Krishna, Krishna's stepping towards us, and nobody else is getting in the way, right? It's like that beggar doesn't have to come back. It's like that there's nobody else's fate is tied into yours and interfering with your own spiritual progression. So in a sense, the question is, is our own fate determined by the choices of others? Does it have anything to, is it tied to others? And do I have to wait for someone else to complete their karma to get out of to free myself from the law of karma, in a sense, is what it's asking, right? Sound about right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so let's look at that. The fact is, karma is like a really complicated thing. And sometimes to explain it, we explain it in really simplistic ways, right? If I hit someone over the head with a baseball bat,
Right.
I'm due for someone to come over to me and hit me with a baseball bat over the head. And you know what? It may not be that simple. It's actually an extremely complex thing. It's actually practically infinitely complex. But we should try to understand the basics of it. Now, I get your concern with that first statement. If I give something to a beggar, even if I'm working hard on my own spiritual progress, now I have to take another birth just because I tried to do something nice, and so that other person can pay me back. And this is, the second thing that you read, that you mentioned, the second talk, and thing that you heard that you mentioned, is more the central message, right? In other words, there is nothing between you and your own determination to move to God. Nobody else can get in the way. There's no obstacle. Nothing will prevent you from doing that. I think what the original speaker what he didn't say, perhaps, or at least you didn't include in your description here, was that, in a sense, we have one fundamental decision to make. And it kind of goes back to the internal and external question. Which of these worlds do I want to live in, and how do I dedicate myself? Because if I decide I don't want to play the karma game anymore, like I don't give in charity because I want something back, right? Even if I do give in charity, I give in charity without the desire for anything in return. I just do it because it will help this person, because it will please God, not because I want God to give me something back and this person necessarily has to come and pay me back. If my motive in giving that charity is entirely to please God, and everything that I do in my life is entirely to please God, that is called akarma. That means it's an action, karma, that brings no reaction. So it's akarma. It negates it, right? It's
I
negated.
think that's
karma.
what most people do when they give money to a homeless person. They're not expecting a payback, right?
Well, it all depends. I mean, a lot of people may be doing it because it makes them look good. A lot of people, there could be so many different reasons why one does
Okay,
that.
there could be many, but-
what to speak of
Sure,
when you
okay.
get into a culture that has a very clearly defined idea about how karma works, then it's like, yeah, I give a little bit every day because I know in my next life I want so much to come back to me. Many people think that way, right? So again, there's karma and there's akarma, right? So akarma means I'm doing the same action, but I don't want anything back from it. The yogi, the Bhakti-yogi, when they move through this world without any material desires, without any material purpose, they're operating in the realm of akarma. Their actions are categorized as akarma. It means there's no reaction to it. So no matter how many beggars you give something to, you don't have to come back and receive that. But I thought I could read two things. One is this verse from Brahma Samhita. You know this one? Yes, Trendra Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma.
I don't know that one.
You know it. I mean, you may not have it memorized, right? Bandhanu Rupa Palabhajanam Aptunoti.
Tell me.
Karmani
Ever notice that in India when people answer the phone?
Bhakti Bhajam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
You know what I'm talking about in India when they answer the phone? They say, "Tell me,
Tell me.
tell me,
So it's from the Brahma Samhita.
tell me."
Such a beautiful book. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who burns up to their roots all the fruitive activities, all the karmic reactions of those who are imbued with devotion, and impartially ordains for each the due enjoyment of the fruits of one's activities, one's own activities, right? Of all those who walk the path of work, of all those who walk the path of karma, in accordance with the chain of their previously performed works. No less in the case of the tiny insect that bears the name of Indragopa than in that of Indra, the king of the Devas. So in other words, let's read that again, right? I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, that's Krishna, who burns up to the roots let's translate it this. He burns up to the roots all of the karmic reactions of one who's imbued with devotion, right? If I live my life for God, not devotion means I'm not asking. This is what we've been talking about all past week, right? In our classes, devotion means I'm doing it not for something material for myself. What I do in life, I do it to please God. So if you're imbued with devotion, Then Govinda burns up all your reactions. And he said, and then, but what if I choose not to live that life? What if I want to, as it's saying here, walk the path of karma, walk the path of work? I want to get the things of this world. Then for that person, it says, he impartially ordains for each the due enjoyment of the fruits of one's activities, right? In accordance with the chain of their previously performed works. And that goes for everyone in the material world, whether you be the tiny Indragopa insect or Indra himself, the king of heavens. So in this
Ever wonder what an Indragopa insect is?
no, it's a little
like
germ or something, I think.
It's not a bug.
Well, here it says that to the small red insect called Indragopa. That's the
small.
translation.
Maybe it's a ladybug.
It could be a little ladybug. But here the term used, there is a term, svakarma, one's own fruit of activities, right? It has nothing to do with someone else having to come back in another life. I'm not bound by that. So really fundamentally, it comes down to that important choice. When someone decides, when someone within their heart says, you know what, I don't want the things of this world. I want to live for love. I want to live to give. I want to live to serve God, and I make my decisions based on that conviction, then it said at that point one takes shelter of the internal energy rather than the external energy is the energy that the law of karma is built into the external energy. Within the internal energy, the spiritual energy, there is no law of karma. And so even if you're in this world and even if you're in a material body, you can operate what's called, well, here in famous verse, Bhagavad Gita 9:13, it's called the Daivim Prakritim Ashritam. You can take shelter of the Daivim Prakritim. Prakriti means the energy. Daivim Prakritim means the spiritual energy. So the translation to that text 9:13 is, O Arjuna, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature, right? The internal energy, you could say. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So those who know who God is and understand all these different categories of energy, we can make the decision, I will live to serve. I don't want better things in this life and in the next life, better material things. I want to take shelter of that internal energy. And here Krishna calls them the Mahatmas. They're the great souls. Those are the true Mahatmas. Right? So all that being said, I'm not saying that exactly what the person that you're hearing from was off or wrong or something like that, but I think it was an incomplete explanation. And it was just meant to really show how entangling it gets if we decide to take shelter of the material energy rather than the spiritual. Now you're caught up in a world of karma, and it's very complicated, and you may have to take many births, and go through all different kind of things to play it all out. I hope that helps.
It's a labyrinth. It is a labyrinth. It's a labyrinth.
It's a big, complicated labyrinth. All right.
It is pretty interesting. How the heck did we get this body born into this? Ever look at your family? Where's my mom? She can't hear me. ever be like, how the hell did I get born in this family? Who are they? I'm looking at my brothers and sisters. Who are these people? What do I have nothing in common with my family. Nothing. They don't get it. They don't get anything about me. I don't get them. How did I get born here? Who are they?
This is little Raghu asking these questions. What is going on?
I'm still asking it. I'm still asking that question. Christmas 2021. I'm still asking that question.
All right. I have a crucial, important question, a question of great importance. This relates to many people.
Hit me.
But maybe I'll just share a little, I'll just read the question.
What'd you get?
It's kind of an anonymous question coming from a Californian. Talks about one of the great evils in society.
Oh. Human trafficking?
No.
Okay, tell me.
He says, here's my question for Raghu and Kaustubha Prabhu.
That's a whole thing. Human trafficking. That's freaking horrible.
Yeah,
that is. I hear that word. It sets like a,
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not talking about that, are we?
No. He says,
I don't know if I have any answers.
Here's my question for Raghu and Kaustubha Prabhu. I'd like to hear both of their perspectives. I guess I have to chime in on this one too. especially because I doubt Kaustubha has ever even touched coffee before. I've drunken my cup of coffee in the past. All right, don't
What's going on? This is not human trafficking.
It's
This
a
is
question about drinking coffee. Yes.
Oh, I thought you said it was some like huge
I was
question.
being sarcastic.
Oh, I get it.
Okay,
I
being
believed you,
sarcastic.
but you were actually.
This is a
Okay,
question about
gotcha.
drinking coffee. He says, over the past year, I've developed a caffeine addiction.
Oh,
I drink it.
never good.
I drink it every day. Yet every so often, I feel the desire to quit. I get inspired to stop, but then fall short when I actually try to execute my plan. I realize that I could
It's
have...
called an addiction.
I realize I could have a much more degrading addiction, but I also see how it limits my growth in some ways. I'm also initiated, so it's easy to beat myself up about not following the vows to the highest degree, because one of the initiation vows when one is initiated in these bhakti, this particular bhakti lineage that this person is practicing in, is no intoxication. So generally we think of drugs and alcohol for that, but I say, coffee in one sense, it's, a bit of an intoxicant. So he feels like I could be following that vow better. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah.
He says, at the same time, I'm trying to be gentle and loving with myself.
Oh, a little self-care.
A little self-love.
A little self-love.
With myself, so as not to inhibit my enthusiasm to continue the forward march. So in other words, I guess he's
Meaning,
saying,
I just give myself a little slack here and there, and
if I get too caught up
just a
on
little bit of
every
my
little
own
detail,
thing
I'm going to
here.
go crazy and I'm going to lose my enthusiasm entirely, right?
Yeah, the middle path.
Okay. He says, I imagine I'm not the only aspiring devotee who has or currently struggles with caffeine. So my questions are twofold. One, how much weight should I put on overcoming this addiction? Two, what is the bhakti perspective on caffeine? Some devotees say it's a gray area, a minor intoxicant. Is drinking coffee just straight up sinful? I.e., if some people continued sincerely chanting, serving, reading, etc., but also drinking coffee every day, would they not go back to the spiritual world? But what if our intention is pure? Example, drinking coffee in order to function at our job better so that we can support our family and the bhakti movement. Sounds like a little bit of intelligence in the service of the senses.
Perhaps.
Little rational.
And who is that from? Who is that from?
It's an anonymous one. I'm not
It's
gonna say
anonymous.
who
Oh, come on.
Nope.
Just come out with it already. What's your name? I'm just kidding.
Okay, Raghu, you take this one. Maybe I'll.
My
pipe in a
answer
little.
is this.
Drink up.
Yeah, I think there's cardinal sins, right? And there's minor sins. Do I think that that's the biggest stumbling block on your path to going back to the spiritual world? No, I personally don't think it is. But anything that's going to the reason why we have these regulative principles is not that, God hates intoxicants. God hates, your illicit sexual life. They're for our own protection. So you can drink as much coffee as you want. You can have illicit sex. You can do all those things. It just affects your body and your mind. And so you get exactly, just like I can drive and text, but there's a chance that you could just, have a head-on collision and kill yourself. So of course, there's ones that are, there are activities that can really be a detriment to your spiritual life. Someone could easily argue, hey, what about prescription drugs? What about opioids? These things are legitimate, but are they really legitimate? Are they worse than caffeine? I think people have to be just a little bit mature. And there's always, like I was saying yesterday, that the standards in India, they keep them very, very high, especially in traditional ashrams. And that guardrail is there for our own protection. It's not because God is some sadistic being saying, thou shalt not have fun. Thou shalt not enjoy lattes. It's more for our own benefit. And you get what you put in. And if you feel like, if someone comes to me and says, I don't think there's a problem with marijuana, or I don't think there's a problem with caffeine or I don't think I said, do whatever you need to do, but you should understand you get something for it. When they come up to me like this person wrote, I feel like I'm addicted to this. To me, that's sort of a problem. You know, if the person's voicing some issue. I drink coffee, but I feel like I mean, I haven't drank it all last week. I don't feel like I'm addicted to it. I like the taste of something bitter in the morning. I like sometimes Mara makes me this crazy medicinal mushroom, but then because someone could argue, well, you're not supposed to be drinking medicinal mushrooms either. It's just one of those things. It's like, I feel like there's bigger roadblocks on my path to spiritual life than drinking a cup of coffee. So that's one answer, but I don't like anything controlling me too much. I don't like taking, medication too much if I don't have to. What's another thing? I don't know. That's my answer.
Okay.
I'm not going to give a hard no, and I'm not going to give a hard yes.
Yeah. Again, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but I'll say this, these things add up, even financially, right? You spend $5 on coffee, which people do nowadays, right? You go to Sparks.
A cup of Starbucks, you could be giving
like
that to Wisdom of the Sages right now.
But I think the Vaishnavas, the Bhakti yogis, want to operate from the platform of Sattva Guna. We want to have this clear, lucid. We're faced against a big challenge here, right? It's a hard world to get a focused mind in, and if caffeine is not going to help, then why drink it? Well, it does something for me. It wakes me up in the morning. Do I need that to wake up in the morning? It's like I don't touch it. I used to drink coffee when I was a kid, but to me, I don't get why everybody's so caught up in it. It's like, it doesn't taste, it's not the most delicious thing in the world, And if you need a jolt in the morning, well, God, there's got to be better ways to healthier ways to do it. So again, I don't think it's the worst sin or crime in the world. I don't think it's going to prevent you. If you're serious about your devotional practice, it's not going to prevent you. It's not something that's going to block you from, Krishna's not going to, condemn you to purgatory for for lifetimes or something like that. But at the same time, why not just let it go? I don't see, to me, there's no attraction to it,
Yeah. Breathing gives you energy. Cold showers gives you energy.
Yeah.
Not overeating gives you
healthy
energy.
Food, good food. You're supposed to get good energy from the food that you eat,
Yeah.
Get nice food with good
sometimes
ingredients.
people have a really difficult time. You talk about the yoga culture is going to bring you to a sattvic life, and sattvic life gives more energy. That being said, some people try desperately, but it's difficult to live a sattvic life due to just the way their karma of their body and mind are.
Yeah. Generally, when you try to get energy from something that's not sattvic, it's going to give you energy and then take it away. And I imagine coffee's like that too.
And ice,
any case,
yeah. Or every time you need a cup of coffee, take an ice bath.
There you go.
You're walking down the street. It's 4
10
o'clock. A little
10
wiped
o'clock
out.
break. 10 o'clock break at the office.
Little
to the
ice
bathroom.
plunge.
All right, I think we're out of time, Raghu.
No,
we got no show tomorrow. Oh, hey,
show
I got some information here during the show from.
Some valuable information.
Well, yeah, that if you about that Urban Devi thing, Rukmini wrote to me. So she said you can go to urbandevi.com and find the info there, or you can also go to it's a Bhakti Center event too. So if you go to the Bhakti Center website and look for Urban Devi events there, you're going to find all the details there. But that's Urban Devi tomorrow at from 11 to 1. What was it? 11? Was it 12?
11:30.
11:30 until
1:30 or 1.
Yeah. Anyway, you'll find the detail. I got it right here. One second.
I
From
have
11:30 to 1 Eastern time. Yeah. So check that out. If you're missing us tomorrow and you'd like to check out Urban Devi's thing, it'll be a great way to keep your mind engaged.
Do we have any takeaways? Do we do takeaways on Q&A?
We don't do takeaways on. Yeah, we don't do that.
Really?
Yep.
We don't have any takeaways, huh?
Nope. But what we do have is kirtan.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Oh, that's been good. And if you're listening on Facebook, join us every day, practically speaking, except tomorrow, where we do this. We talk about the Srimad Bhagavatam. We go through this 18,000 inspiring verses, history of the universe. That's what it's considered. It's considered just like you have an American history or European history or whatever. We have history of the universe. That's what the Bhagavatam is, actually. Hearing about the great saints, sages, mystics, yogis, performing paranormal activity, and shedding light on our existence right now. It's still incredibly relevant. Join us Monday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, or anytime you can binge listen on this holiday season to Wisdom of the Sages. You know what's good? Going back to the early ones, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. Those are good. We barely knew how to use our microphones. We were just trying to figure out life back then.
Took us a long time to figure out the microphone.
Took us a long time. We're still trying
struggling.
Yeah, we got Mara.
What's going on, Mara? You got that mic?
Got Mara.
Figured mine out yet.
You just plug
Yours
it in.
isn't working yet? You sound pretty good. And anything else? Oh, thanks everybody. Remember, intro to Harmonium hugging class with Seth Lieberman tomorrow for Patreon members. And also want to give a shout out to our Wisdom of the Sages. Yamuna Jelly she makes these artisan jellies and jams. And I had some yesterday at Kaustubha's. I had the spicy peach. What was it? Spicy mango?
Apricot chili.
Yeah, apricot chili. I put that right on my kitchery. It was really good. So she made a Wisdom of the Sages box for us, and you can go to happygirlkitchen.com and you will get a discount if you put in the code WOTS, Wisdom of the Sages 108. Then you get a percentage off. So check out happygirlkitchen.com. You ready for the holidays, Kaustubha?
Yeah, why not?